Hello everybody, it's Tommy and welcome back to my channel. Today we are doing another mermaid inspired build and this one is an Undersea Mermaid Ballroom. So I've really been enjoying doing these very whimsical under the sea mermaid inspired builds and you guys seem to be really enjoying them as well. So I'm going to keep doing them for a little while until I get bored with them, I guess you could say. But I don't see myself getting too bored with them, especially because we just received an update to The Sims, and it was a base game update that unlocked 1,200 new items in build and buy mode. Specifically, they are world edit objects, so those are basically the objects that the Sims team uses to create the new world whenever we get a new pack. Those kind of like background objects that you see, like bridges and lots of plants and trees and sculptures, and things that aren't available in the general catalog, but they already had created at one point in order to create the brand new world. So yeah, we got an update. Those were all unlocked and are now available in the game to us. I'll link a video down below about how you actually get access to those, because you do have to put in 2 cheats, and I feel like if I explain it, it's not going to be as good as actually watching somebody do it. So I'll link a really good video for that down below if you're interested in how to unlock the items so that you can use them in your own builds. But basically, I did a build a couple of weeks ago. It is one of my favorite builds I have ever done by far. I'll link that at the end of this video for you guys to check out. And it is essentially this rainbow coral reef castle for mermaids. And it used custom content, which was like the one thing that I was really disappointed I had to do in order to accomplish the build the way that I would have liked it. So those custom content pieces that I was using were actually pieces from the Sims game that somebody had pulled out. They were the world objects for Sulani before we got the news about this update and all of that. So somebody had went into the game files, pulled those out, did a few recolors on them so they came in like a large variety of colors, and we got all these corals and these starfish and things like that. So those were things I would have wanted to come with the Island Living pack originally, and I wanted to do that build regardless of the custom content aspect because it was just one of those builds that I couldn't get out of my head. Like, I just had to do it. And then literally a few days later we get the announcement that they're going to be unlocking the world edit objects. So that basically means that if I had waited a few more days, I could have essentially done that build CC free. So I tweeted that I might possibly take that castle and do a new version of it that didn't include custom content, but rather than that, I decided to just do something entirely different because they did unlock the corals and they are available now in the catalog of stuff. So like I said, I'll link a video about how you get access to that, but they didn't come in as many colors as I would have thought. So basically we got a couple of them. The starfish were all the same colors. The big yellow brain coral was the same color. And then there was a few other pieces of coral, but it just didn't come in that variety that I was looking for. So I pulled them all out. I was kind of looking at them and I was like, I will make something, but I just want it to be a little bit different this time. So that is what we have here today. This is very, again, whimsical mermaid inspired. It is a little bit Greek inspired as well. I've been really feeling like Greek and Roman architecture, overdoing it a little bit with like the plants and the organicness of it, because I feel like that's such a cool way to make something look like it is underwater, is just bring in like a lot of plants and natural things that would grow on like structures under the water and things like that. So that is what we have here today. We started out with a couple of circular platforms that are spiraling around the back of the build, and I started that out on my own just to see if this was something I would be able to do, but I wanted to have this grand spiraling tower staircase in the back and then have this main structure in the middle. So one of the reasons this ended up being a ballroom versus maybe like a castle is these tall towers. They are slender and really tall, which is what I wanted, but when they are this size, you can't actually fit a functional staircase inside of them, which isn't really a problem for the fact that it's a mermaid build. So I like to use the open archways, and in my head I'm like, oh, mermaids would swim in and out of them. But if you're thinking of this like game mechanics wise and actual playability, it's not something that makes the lot very functional at all. So I decided to use those back towers as more decorative, and then the main center structure is going to be the more center, you know, where you would actually play. Maybe use it as a wedding lot for mermaids, maybe use it as a ballroom or just a party lot, not necessarily a residential in the slightest. And I think that that's the difference between the two. But I will tell you that that other one that I did, the Rainbow Coral Mansion, I downloaded that without the CC and placed it just to see what would happen, and it actually still looks really decent if you have most of the packs in The Sims. So even if you don't want to use CC, I would recommend trying that one out and downloading it, and you might find that it still looks pretty close to what I originally wanted. It's just missing those like corals. And then we have the corals here if you want the corals. So yeah. Lots like this require a lot of monotonous actions. They're very time consuming, and I think I struggled with this one more than I have with ones in the past, because this one is probably the third or fourth one that I've done so far, so it was a little bit hard, like how am I going to make this one stand out versus some of the other ones that I've done and really give it that special factor that makes it look like have this wow moment the way that the other ones did. Versus, you know, just like being another one that I did. I want each of them to really stand out amongst each other. So I really did struggle with that. And this one took me a lot longer than some of the other ones did, just because I had to take a lot of breaks trying to figure out what could I do to make this one look a little bit different, make it interesting. And I ended up finding that one of the best ways to make this one interesting was to really do some interesting things with the architecture, and do a lot of those, frame pieces. I don't know what they're called. They're the pieces that go on the tops of walls, and then play with the roofing and get different heights going with that, and a lot of other things that we're going to talk about once it actually happens. So the main building is 2 floors, and the bottom is basically just going to end up being a fountain. The entire lot is really just designed to look really nice. There's not a lot actually going on here for gameplay ability. The second floor of the ballroom is going to be the main like dance floor, where we'll do like lots of curtains and a piano and stuff like that. But it was just more important to me that this lot looked crazy, like beautifully whimsical and like really, really good for screenshots. And I was also just excited in general to use some of the new items that had been unlocked. So before actually doing this build, I sat down and went through the new catalog of stuff, probably for a good 2 hours, just scrolling through and looking at all the new plants and all of the new trees and just really taking it all in so that I could figure out, you know, what's available. Because the catalog of The Sims 4, the more you build, the more you just start to remember, like, oh, this is something we have, oh, this is something we don't have. And it took me a really long time to remember basically the catalog and know what is available versus what is not available. So now that we have basically gotten 1,200 new items, and they're not functional items for the most part. I think there's 1 or 2 that are functional. There was like 1 fireplace that I found, or a fire pit and a waterfall that were both functional. But it's so many new things, and it's a lot to take in, and it actually inspired me to do a lot of other builds. There were some things that I pulled out where instantly I was like, okay, I could do this now, or I could do this. Things that I had been kind of waiting for other packs to come out before I even attempted it, but now might be a little bit more possible. So on that hand, I'm a little bit tempted to stray away from the mermaid builds for a little bit and start doing some other stuff. But like I said, you really seem to all be enjoying the mermaids. So comment down below, let me know what you would like to see. Would you like some new builds that have all of the new world objects and all over the spectrum? Like, I'm not going to give away any of my ideas, but I have lots of new things, but they literally have nothing to do with island living and Solani. So I want to know if that's what you guys want to see, or if you want a couple more of these mermaid or fantasy inspired builds. I actually have another one coming out probably tomorrow that is again very Greek and Roman inspired architecturally. Strays a little bit away from the mermaids, but still has that same aesthetic and is built in Solani as well. But, so yeah, let me know what you guys would actually like to see, because I could literally go either way with it, and I really want your opinion on that. And this is basically, like, another thing I had to do was go through and find things that I was going to end up using for this lot. So I would say one of the worst things, because with every like new thing that we get for The Sims, I feel like there's always give and take with it. So you get one thing and one thing is kind of taking away from it, or it's not as good as it could have been. And one of the huge problems with this new update that I have found as a builder is that it is all of these new objects are considered debug objects. So the problem with debugged objects in The Sims is that they are not available to do what I call like the copy and paste. So basically, if I'm building and I want to use something over and over again in the build, like these corals, for example, that I'm using, let's say I want to just use hundreds of those all over the build. One of the things that you can do to make that go a little bit quicker is hold down your shift key while you're building, and it will automatically copy, and then you don't have to go back down to the menu on the bottom and click again. And you would only believe how much time that actually saves you, especially when you're going to be using tons of items over and over again. So when you do that for debug items, it doesn't work. And since all of these new objects are basically considered debug items, you can't copy them over. So for every single time I needed one of these big green ivies or one of those flat red corals, I couldn't use the copy and paste. And so you have to go down to the menu, you have to actually find it, first of all, in the new 1,200 new objects that are available. You have to scroll through and find it, and then you have to select it over and over again the amount of times that you need. And people have been trying to find ways around this, but realistically, the best thing that could happen is if we got another update to The Sims, hopefully in the next patch, fingers crossed, that we get the ability to copy over debug items. I cannot tell you how much time that would save builders like me that do these crazy builds like these, or just the ability to search debug items, because that's another huge issue that a lot of people probably don't know about. When something is in debug, 9 times out of 10, it hasn't been properly tagged, because The Sims doesn't consider it, like, you don't have to tag it, people won't use it, it's not supposed to come up in like the normal catalog. So what that means is that you literally have to know that something is there, otherwise you won't be able to find it. So that's why I spent so much time actually going through everything and trying to memorize and look at all of the new items, because you have to literally know that something exists, otherwise you just will never end up using it. So this is a huge learning curve for me as a builder, trying to use a lot of these new items, but also figure out ways to get around the time consumption that it's going to cost me in order to use some of this stuff. But I really do think that it's worth it, and I'm glad for the update regardless, and it will create so many more things and possibilities. And like, I will say, when we got the update, I literally just sat at my computer and stared at the new items and was overwhelmed beyond belief with all of the things that I could do now. And I was slowly like coming towards not a content block, but just a little bit of like uninspiration. Like, I wasn't super interested in doing anything. And you guys probably, I don't know if you noticed, but I do a lot of building, and then all of a sudden I'll switch to Create-A-Sim and I'll do a lot of Create-A-Sim, and that's usually when I just can't be bothered to build anymore, because I can't come up with anything that piques my interest. And I don't really like putting out builds just for the sake of doing them. I really do enjoy actually liking the builds that I put out. So that's a problem from time to time, and I was kind of getting there. But this build and these brand new items literally just sent my brain soaring. I could only, like, the possibilities were endless with all of the things that I came up with. I created like a whole new list of stuff. But like I said, I'm not really sure if it's a good time to put that stuff out yet. So you guys really, really have to let me know what you would like to see. And either way, I will do it. Maybe a little bit mix of both. Like maybe a build using the new world objects, and then maybe like another mermaid build. I don't know. It's all up to you guys here on this channel. So, yeah, definitely let me know, because I really do enjoy your thoughts on all of that. So this build, like I said, it's a lot of monotony. And what I usually do when something requires me to place the same object over and over again is I'll show a little bit of what I'm doing, and then I'll actually cut it for time. I would say for this one, less than the other ones, I didn't cut as much of it, because I did want you guys to get an opportunity to see like some of the like I guess, detail that goes into it, where I might cut some of that out, and I feel like it sometimes gets missed. I included it this time around because I thought that it might be like a cool little thing for you guys to see something different. And this final tower that I'm actually working on, there was a weird problem with it, and you might notice that there's a very strange thing that I ended up having to do for this build that I haven't done before. So because I used the height sliders for the foundations, it was acting really weird. It wasn't allowing me to place items there as easily as the other towers were. So the tower was considering the top floor to be a closed room, and so if I was putting those ivies up on the top, it was actually changing the color of them because it considered them to be indoor. So I had to knock one of the walls down in order to make it a non-room, like an outdoor room, so I could get the same lighting as the rest of the towers. You can't actually really tell because of the amount of vines and coral and stuff like that that I've used around the outside of it. You literally cannot tell that it is not like a closed off room, and especially because it's not actually like a room that's meant to be in, it's more of like a decorative thing. It doesn't really affect anything, but I ended up doing it for all of the towers in order to keep the lighting all the same. I would knock out one wall on the top floor of each tower, and it's something that I think nobody would have noticed, but I just thought that it was an interesting thing that I had to do in this build, and something that I had to work my way around because I don't normally have that kind of a problem, but you know, a little bit different. There's always something going on in The Sims. There's always a problem whenever I try to do something crazy that I have to work my way around and come up with like a solution. And it's a lot more problem solving than you would think, but I enjoy it. It keeps me on my toes, if anything, and it teaches me, which I think is really, really important because I feel like my building and my skills as a builder has only gotten better because I'm constantly willing to learn. I feel like once you get to the point where you don't want to learn anymore and you feel like you know how to do everything and you're not trying to teach yourself new things and come up with different solutions, you are definitely doing yourself a disservice because that is where you could just be, you know, getting more out of it than previous. So I love learning. I love watching other people build. I love listening to reasons why they did things or special tricks that they did that I can use. You would not believe how many times I borrow other people's tricks and tips and tutorials that I watch quite frequently just to get new, you know, inspiration and come up with things that I would have literally never thought of because everybody's brain works a little bit differently. So things that I would do in like my builds, like knocking the wall out in this one in order to change the lighting and stuff like that, people might, you know, take inspiration from that as much as I might from another person. So definitely watch other people. If you are ever wondering, how do I build? How do I get better at building? Watch other people, tons and tons of people of all subscriber counts, people of all different kinds. Like watch people that build normal houses, watch people that build base game homes, watch people that build crazy houses, watch mansion builders. There's so many people. I should probably make a video list of like people that I watch so that I could get, give you guys inspiration, I guess, if you're looking for somewhere to start. But I will tell you, one of the people that I do watch pretty frequently is James Turner, so Sim Supply. He was probably the first simmer that I ever came across in the YouTube space, and I used to watch all of his videos. I still check out all of his building videos when I get an opportunity to, and he was always a huge inspiration to me, and some of my modern, like, enjoyment of modern design comes from him, definitely. So I definitely recommend him. Not that he needs the recommendation from me, because definitely everybody knows who he is, but great place to start if you are looking for somebody to copy off of or just get inspiration from. You guys know what I mean. Another new item that we got in this pack of stuff that was specifically from Island Living are these whale pieces. They're probably something from off of the island that I, again, have not gotten an opportunity to play it, so I have no idea. But there were two structures. One was like a turtle, and then one was this two-piece whale where the tail is like separated, and it's almost made to look like it's diving under the water and then coming back out. And I thought it would be a really cool thing to use in this build, but I couldn't figure out where or how to use it. Eventually I decided that it would make a really cool entranceway and use it as kind of that interesting structure or sculpture that you see when you first walk in front towards the doorway, and actually doing 2 of them, but I came up with a little bit of a trick as well for that, so we'll talk about it when you guys get to see it in a few moments here. And yeah, we're just doing a lot of really, really tedious work, replicating lots of things, lots of curtains. I tried to keep the colors a little bit central to what was actually being available in like the new coral packs. So we've got the reds, the yellows from the brain coral, some purples and pinks a little bit, and then obviously the green with the vines and the ivy and stuff. And that was probably the biggest struggle, is the line between overdoing it and trying to come up with, make it look very organic. Like, it gets very crazy with the plants super quickly. So some of these I ended up getting rid of because it was just too much for the eye to look at. And although I wanted that look, it just, like, it was too heavy on the eye. At least, personally for me, what I thought. So, yeah, I ended up deleting some of those plants. But for the towers, for the most part, I did want to keep it. And then I ended up toning back the actual, like, central tower in the middle so that it is a little cleaner looking and minimalistic, and then you've got more of that busy look around the outside on the background. And yeah, this was probably the point where I was trying to figure out what it is that I'm actually going to do interior with this, because up until this point, it was still in my head to maybe do this as a mansion of some sort and actually do it as a residential, but it just got to the point where I was like, okay, I don't really have enough room to probably do like a full kitchen, do everything that I probably would have wanted to do. So this was when I decided to make it a ballroom. And, you know, I think if we had one more lot in Solani that was a little bit bigger, like, I am desperate for a 64 by 64 in Solani that preferably had no beach on it, was just 100% water out in the open, to do boats and cruise ships and these crazy floating houses and underwater houses. I would have loved that so much, but this is actually the largest lot in Solani, so this is about the extension of what I can do, which is a little bit unfortunate because it does cause me to have to tone back some of my ideas and minimalize them, because there's no other lots in any of the other worlds that are half water, so I'm limited to this lot. And you guys have probably noticed that all of my large mermaid builds have been on this lot because it's the only one, which is also a problem, because if you want to download more than one, you can't, because you have to pick one, which is a little bit annoying. Not my favorite thing. One more lot would have done it for me, but that's okay. Maybe in the next expansion, which, if you haven't heard the news, we are getting another expansion pack this year, and that's great news. So that'll probably be coming out somewhere around Christmas time, although the release date of it is not known. We're getting another game pack. We're also getting another stuff pack before the end of the year, and then a few days ago, they made an announcement that there would be one more expansion pack before the end of the year. So that puts the timing of it probably somewhere close to Christmas time, and I'm personally hoping for farming. I know everybody wants university. I would really appreciate a good farming pack, but that's just me. So yeah, this is the end of the build. You guys can see a little bit better what I did with the whales in the front here, using them more as like sculptures, and some screenshots from the inside to get you some aesthetic shots. Just for this little simple, you know, mermaid ballroom. And like I said, you guys can download this. It is already available on the gallery under my origin ID, theallegedsimmer. All one word, no custom content. Check out anything I dropped in the description for tutorials and stuff like that. And thank you guys all so much for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Hit that little bell icon below to turn on post notifications so you can get updated every single time I post. And I will talk to you all in the next one.